Hello, my people, my people. Welcome to the Transform You Live show. We got a real great show for you today. You can expect for us to welcome you back, of course, to 2022. We got deliberations going on in the Supreme Court. We're not going to discuss too much about that. We're going to actually, we have sparks of inspiration from what's going on. Me and Paul, we were discussing about it on the other side. We're going to be talking about, do you really value your freedom? Okay, so we know everyone, have set forth to put these resolutions, New Year's resolutions, and set goals. But what are you doing with them? What are you doing with your freedom? What type of personal decision are you making? So sit tight. Uh, Come back in just a second while we sit forth this introduction.
Heard it here first.
You are now rocking with the hottest business and spirituality podcast show, the Transform You Live Show, hosted by Marcus Hart and Paul Greaves. This is the only place where you can get on your own personal transformation journey, drawn from personal stories, books, and much, much more. For more information, visit transformubroadcast.com. That's transform the letter U, broadcast.com. Only on the Transform You Media Network. Now here's your host.
Hello, welcome back, good people. Of course, we want to give a shout out to our sponsor. I almost forgot about that. Our sponsors for today's show is Aruku Training Institute. You want to check them out at aruku.com. And also, we want to shout out Hot Takes Podcast. Thank you also, Hot Takes Podcast, for all that you do to support us. We got quite a bit of sponsors, Paul. So you guys gonna hear more about them as the podcast goes on today. Who else am I forgetting? Also, I want to give a shout out to looks like the the sport. It looks like the Explorer. I can't say the word. Is it this? Hey, Diaspora? Help me out.
The Exporter, is it?
Yeah, Diaspora. I can't say the word. I said it. I said it yesterday, and now I can get it out. But the psychedelic society.org. So what they do, they help people learn more about psychedelic, legal psychedelic drugs in Jamaica, educating the people of Jamaica about psychedelic drugs and the medicinal uses of it. You'll find out more about them too as the podcast go. Maybe me and Paul be able to properly sound out the word as this goes on. And Crypto Unplugged podcast too. Shout out to them. So with that being said, today's topic is do you really value your freedom? And thank you to our
To our English
friend
teacher.
out there. Yeah. He said Diaspora.
Diaspora. There you go.
Diaspora. Yeah. Thank you. See, we got one audiences out there that helps us out, so that's great, when we got people who's willing to help us out and willing to utilize their freedom to help someone. So like with that being said, diaspora, fora, so yeah, he's still trying to help us with the pronunciation shit. We'll get it. So yeah, yeah, exactly. So Paul, when you hear the question, do you really value your freedom? What what's the first thought that comes to mind? That.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Marcus, because obviously I've just moved back to the UK from the US, and when we do talk about freedom, it's strange because obviously the freedom over there where you are in the US, it's one of those things you kind of brought up with that you're told all the time that everyone has their freedom and so on. Whereas in the
Mm.
UK, it's not really spoken about as often. And when we do think about freedom, especially here, it's just you just take it for granted really because there's never been a time where freedom hasn't been in question really. So it's interesting to think about it on both sides of the Atlantic. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think being in the US, freedom, I think it means a lot more.
yeah, because you got a chance to experience like both sides of it. You got a chance to live here and kind of immerse yourself in sort of
Mm.
the experience, if you will, of like of our quote unquote freedom. Like when and then you were brought up in London and in the UK, and that's a different type of freedom. Like what is that conversation like? Over in London about freedom.
It's just a funny question. If you ask any English person, it's like, what are you talking about? It's we can do what you want. It's free.
Yeah,
We've got no kind of Second Amendment and stuff like that. It's just you know we've got no written constitution. So it's just
yeah,
something you just take for granted. And when you look at what else is going around the world, it's like, well, we should be taking it for granted because some people don't get that, you know, that that access to freedom, or especially during the pandemic with different governments doing different things, freedom. Unfortunately, it seems like it can be taken away from you, so easily.
yeah. And I like what you said is about some of that response that you'll get over there in London about like what you're talking about. Freedom. Like yeah, that's a given. It should be, and because like when we born into this world, we're told that like hey there's if depending on like what type of household you grew up in, most people are born with some type of faith base, ideology, behind them, kind of like empowering like their values. That like hey, there's a God that says like hey, everybody has free will, everybody has some type of way to exercise how they want to live, and so yeah, so it should be a given. And but but like you said, when you go to most Eastern countries, um, and even some parts of um, places over on the opposite side of the Atlantic, is not that's not the case. And and then you realize like, hey man, maybe I am taking this thing a little bit for granted because there's people that that don't really have a choice, but do they really have a choice? Is there still a little bit of a choice that they have?
Mm. Yeah, it is an interesting one when you put it that way. Depending on what the lottery of where you were born, which country you're born into, what type of family you're born into, what type of faith. Yeah, I think freedom can take on many different things. It could be simply you've got the freedom to leave the house, or it could be you've got the freedom to do what you want. I think freedom is quite wide. It's a wide ranging word when you think about when people don't have as much freedom as what you and I have.
Yeah. So like, is this freedom then like ultimately then like kind of judged then by like how happy we are then? Because like it at some point when I was becoming really bratty, I remember very becoming very bratty and very spoiled in my teenage and like some parts of my 20s. Yeah, I said, you know what, I'm not happy, and like I feel like I really not really free to do anything,
Mm,
and and I think I was starting to cross my freedom, cross how free I am to decide to do something and choose to do something or can do something with like how happy I was. So do you think that's a measurement of how happy we is or how stressed we are? For that matter, got a little bit to do with freedom, or it's like kind of the other way around.
No, I think it's a good point there, Marcus. That depending on how happy you are, obviously, I'm sure freedom goes hand in hand with that, and yeah, especially talking about this time of year as well, when when you're doing New Year's resolutions. Are you happy with your life? Do you have the freedom to make the changes, or to stop things? Because lots of us do resolutions where we're stopping something. So it's having the freedom to stop eating, stop drinking, stop doing other things which may be harmful to our bodies. So yeah, it's an interesting one to think about. Whether happiness and freedom comes hand in hand, or whether it's they're kind of on opposite ends of the scale.
Yeah, I think people really make that mistake by and you said it too. Uh, they make that mistake by thinking that they are bound by these strongholds, by these things that uh, kind of like continue to stress them out. Okay, so like these really obvious apparent things you can change and exercise your freedom to do. Yeah, like nobody's stopping you, from saying like, hey, uh, I want to lose some weight, you know, I want to choose a better healthy, a better and a healthier lifestyle. Nobody's stopping you from that. But uh, again, like I said, I have made the mistake in my 20s and when I was a teenager by saying like, I can't get to the gym or so people, like my, I don't have enough money to do this, to do that, But really, I I was still free to like, you know, research some things, look into other options that probably wouldn't cost me anything,
Mhm.
or that like I could do at home, and COVID really like opened that up for a lot of people that like, hey, there are other options.
Definitely. And when you just mentioned the word there, exercise your freedom, it just made me start thinking, what does that actually mean now? Does exercising your freedom mean, right, I'm going to get up off my backside and go and do something, or does that mean that because I can do something, I'm just going to do something anyway? So yeah, when we're talking about restrictions, how far you can leave the house, what you can do to leave the house, etc. Is that exercising your freedom? And it's just what do you think, Marcus, about exercising the freedom? What pops into your mind when you hear that?
I immediately think about the fact that uh, we become very complacent. We become very, hey, let's be blunt here. We become lazy. We become we become very stuck in our own box, and it is all about taking action. It is about just moving forward and saying like, hey, you know what, this whole obstruction, this restriction, this block that like seems to be in my way. All I have to do is simply move it, or just go through it, or push a little bit, and I may start walking or moving right into the light of this great thing called freedom. Okay, or the freedom that I already have like existing within me, uh, or right or standing right next in front, right next to me or in front of me. Because sometimes exercise doesn't require in, strenuous exercise. You don't need nothing strenuous. Sometimes you don't need nothing that that's like uh, that's going be a certain duration. we learn um, with um, different situations in the past. We can point at like the civil rights movement, that like little subtle actions,
Hmm.
such as just refusing to give up a seat. That wasn't nothing like too major. I mean, but I mean, of course, it came at a cost, but it didn't require you to go and push over a bus. It required someone just to just, hey, just stay where you are. Do it non violently, and just say no, say the word no. Some things don't require much force, and that in itself is still an exercise. Get what you want.
Yeah, yeah. That's really interesting there, Marcus, what you said about um, the civil rights there, especially, and and I think that kind of boils back to when we started off this conversation, where in the US, the value of valuing freedom seems like more on everyone's kind of mind, whereas in the UK, it's not really thought about that way, and yeah, I suppose, again, when you said about when you're exercising your freedom, uh, does that mean you value the freedom as well, or is it just because you can do something, you can move an obstacle in your path to what kind of goal you're wanting to go to? So, yeah, again, it just really boils down to that value in the freedom, or whether it's just exercising the freedom because you can, and again, I'll go back to people, countries that aren't able to exercise or you know have that freedom to value, which is really sad to know that happens nowadays.
Yeah, and I think the cannot uh, for the is usually because of the have nots.
Mm,
And reason why you have not, usually because of the education, and uh and sometimes that's just not your fault.
hmm.
But uh there's usually an urge that begins to develop within a person, within an individual, when they notice when there's something not right, when they notice that, like, hey, there's a value attached to me, but that value that I'm attaching to myself, I know that like it's being uh, lowered by things that are outside of me and people that are outside of me. So so why is that? And so if it's that of the outside, and then the outside trying to uh power me to think low of myself, think that, like, hey, what I really want to believe about myself, value that I really want to believe about myself isn't true. you know I gotta start asking why. And
Hmm.
if, like, those who are lacking the education and the awareness, they at least have that. I think, just being brave enough to start asking why can start getting them closer to start having the education, and move them forward. And this is why um, we have so many areas that, like, are still willing to go blindly with tradition, because uh, so much of the outside continues to bombard them with, thanks, bombard them with the messages, and with, like, things that's not true about them.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, Marcus, and Yeah, as you know, with my kind of background in education, what you said there about having the education or realizing that to get an education can help you. But something we've spoken about in a couple other episodes is just surrounding yourself with the right people, with the positive people, not the selfish people, kind of sucking away that that positivity within inside you. So I guess it's having that freedom to surround yourself with the right people, and getting that education or realizing that there is a better you out there, I suppose you could say, and having the
Yeah,
having the freedom and being able to improve yourself, that self improvement.
yeah, and that's where it starts at. You know, when you do start choosing,
Mm.
yeah, when you do start choosing, when you do, um, yeah, just I mean, yeah, just simply start making some choices. You know, and I think we said at the very beginning is that freedom starts with like making choices and making some decisions for yourself. And there's a lot of people who rather surrender that over to other people, rather that be the government.
Hmm. Not sure whether Marcus has dropped off here at the moment, so let me see if he comes back. Ooh, yeah, well, I think we're still alive, so I'll carry on, and hopefully Marcus would join back in. But I think as he was saying, then is having the freedoms that are being dictated by maybe your government, maybe by um, the Supreme Court, as we mentioned at the start, that there's a big case going through the Supreme Court at the moment to see whether I think big businesses can mandate having vaccinations for their employees. So it's just an interesting kind of thought about whether we can have our freedom. Oh, okay, hopefully Marcus will be coming back in, and whether that freedom is right for us, and whether we can accept it when it's been taken away. So as we were talking about at the start, having that freedom to value is so important, and I guess it all depends on what you can do with that freedom yourself. How does that work? You know, are you valuing that freedom? Are you going out there and exercising that freedom, throughout the day, which is really, it's really kind of been hitting us over the past few years that when the pandemic began and governments around the world kind of started to lock down, started putting restrictions on people, taking freedoms away, either rightly or wrongly. I don't want to get into that conversation whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it does make you think about how easily freedom can be taken, and to be told whether you can do something or whether you can't do something, or as I was talking about before, how far you can travel away from your house, what you can do, what restrictions are on you to go to the grocery store, or go and visit people. It's so easy to have those freedoms taken away, and once I'm sure it's happened to everyone out there who's listening, that once your freedoms are taken away, and you maybe sat in your house, sat in your apartment, and thinking to yourself, is this what it's about now, just sitting here waiting for something to happen or someone to do something. It really just starts to hit you, I suppose, that freedom can be easily taken away, and as it's proven, I suppose, quite hard to get back. So yeah, it's a real interesting one when you do start thinking about freedom, whether you value freedom. And oh, let's see if Marcus is back. Hey, Marcus.
Hey, yeah, I got kicked out.
Oh man, no
Well,
problem, no problem.
thanks
I've been
thanks for
talking.
taking over for me.
That's okay.
All right, so well, just maybe bring me up to speed with what you left off with, and it can close it up like that because
Yeah, sure.
we
So,
had a real great audience that like stuck with us.
I appreciate that for everyone listening out there. And I was just carrying on from when you were talking about the government, and then I was just talking about how easy it is for freedom to be taken away, and then suddenly you're sat in your apartment, sat at home, realizing that your freedom's been taken away, and how hard it is to get that freedom back. And it's just talking about how we can, when we have our freedom, or when we do have 100% freedom back. You know, are we going to value it a little bit more now?
Yeah, absolutely. We seen what happened, after after lockdowns. I mean, there's still some countries that's going back into lockdown, that's still in
Hmm.
lockdown, or and after the lockdown, people were kind of bewildered. They didn't, they some people went crazy, some people went wild, some people, wasn't sure what to do, how to return back to normal, and some people just went went and continued the new normal. And what we discovered from that is that you know at the end of, we can easily become very all dependent on 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 either each other, or on the government, or we can thrive outside of, like, outside of everything, and start setting our own metrics, and and really start discovering like who we are and who we truly want to be,
Hmm.
and be leaders, um and learn how to be leaders, and learn how to and learn how to help others during rough times. And I think the latter form is going to be very important. We're gonna need more leaders. We're gonna need more people who's willing to, if you don't want to be a leader, you can still be a person who's going to be willing to take some inventory, and and start being more insightful into yourself, and say, okay, um, how can I take some insightful steps to ensure that, like, I'm safe mentally, safe, and that I'm healthy emotionally, and that, like, I'm, I'm strong physically, to be able bodied, for myself, for my family, and for my fellow man. So we got a question out there in the audience. Um, it says, what restricts or violates someone else's freedom? Can there be a true system of freedom? So I mean, that's an excellent question. I'll let you say something, Paul, and then I'll come back and answer our audience.
Yeah, it's a real good question, and thanks there to Wes McRae for sending that one in. It is an interesting one, isn't it? When you think about, true freedom, does that mean you can do what you want? Doesn't matter. There's no repercussions. But I suppose from my point of view, the true sense here of freedom is your own freedom, but that's not impinging on someone else's freedom. If they don't want something, or violates their own freedom, then that's not on. So from my point of view for this question, it is an interesting one, but I wouldn't like to think that my freedoms would do anything detrimental to someone else's own sense of freedom. And I'd hope it works vice versa there. But yeah, Marcus, love to hear what you think. And Wes McRae, what do you think of my answer?
I like.
Oh, Marcus been kicked out again. Yeah, looks like he's gone. But let's see if Wes McRae comes back. But it's a real interesting one, isn't it? It's one of those kind of strange kind of thoughts you get once in a while, that if there was no laws or rules in the world, how would everyone get on with each other? And yeah, would that mean that everyone has their own sense of freedom? They can do what they want, because you'd either think that complete chaos would happen. Everyone would just be running, like the Wild West, You know, people just taking what they want and just it's just being crazy. Oh, our second Marcus is back.
Yeah, let me get rid of this other Marcus.
Imposter.
Okay, so yeah, this is not it just not working with the computer. I don't know what's going on, but you can hear me okay, right?
Yeah.
All right. So go on. So I like Wes's comment. I think it's excellent. So and I like what you said too, Paul. So there was one about truth. Okay, so there's a Bible scripture. It says, what is truth? You know, uh, and I like that Bible scripture. It says, what is truth? So what is truth? Is there really a true system of freedom? Okay, especially when we're talking about like uh, when we dealing with different people's perspective, when we're dealing with people's realities, there's so many different possibilities, that we're working with here. And if you were to say that, like, hey, like I simply enjoy driving fast, and then another person say, well, I simply enjoy driving slow down the highway, and like, and then the speed limit is 70 miles per hour, and like, so to some that's fast, to some that's not that fast. Some for some that's just fast enough. But what we discover is that, like, we actually need like all three people on the road, because like, we can't have all three people driving the same way on the road. But we can't have everybody driving fast. So what is true? What is true is that, when people are willing to acknowledge, they're like, hey, like, this is what I do, but it's not to, to hurt you. If I am hurting you, let's figure out a way in which, we can coexist in this world. And I think, lack of communication, lack of the understanding is what results in violation of someone else's freedom. um and I think that's what results in a dictatorship, when someone says, like, hey, it's going to be this way and this way only, and that's not true. We can coexist. If that wasn't so, we wouldn't have, like, a speed limit, that, like, that sometimes a police officer is willing to, like, bend the rules a bit on some.
No, that's you're right there, and as you said, it's kind of like everyone's got their own speed, and it's all about just making sure that you are um, considerate of others. And we got a reply from Wes McRae here. So Wes says, I think there's a difference between freedom and rights. We sometimes confuse the two. That's yeah, that's a real interesting comment there, and yeah, freedom and rights. Ah, I'm not too sure, Marcus. What do you think of this? Surely everyone has rights, to freedom, or what do you think of that one?
Yeah. So I mean, that one is, essentially very easily confused. I would say a right, the right is what established by someone else. You know, hey, you come in my house, you got a right to do this, you got a right to do that. I'm not going to allow you to, break my furniture. I'm not going to allow you to, like, put your feet on my couch. You know, but you do have the freedom to come in my house or not. You do got a freedom to, like, breathe. Like, I can't tell you not to breathe.
Mm,
I can't tell you how not to live. Like, I mean, I can't tell you that anything that's going to, like, infringe on, you not being able to, be an individual, that's going to cause you suffering. But I can, I can't tell you, what the laws are, of of my household that's going to, and at least create some order. We still got to have order, and which goes back again to to that speed limit of 70 miles per hour. You have a right. You have a right to go to that speed. Go up that speed, and you have a right to sometimes exceed that speed limit to a certain amount. But you don't have a right to constantly break the law. You know,
Hmm.
um, but you got the freedom to choose. You got the freedom to be happy. You got the freedom to drive on that road. I can't tell you don't drive or or choose your mode of transportation. But I can tell you like, hey, speed limit 70. If I pull you over, I can choose rather not to like to bend that right however I want. So, but it doesn't mean that like again goes back to like what I was saying, that the two can't coexist, and that like we can't have morals. Like, we can't have a moral compass for both. We can't like develop integrity, when we're talking about both, or uh, go back and badmouth people and cancel people because of like what we think about both. So that's that. I think that's where the world's going right
Oh, definitely, without a doubt. And yeah, I think when you were talking about that, then Marcus, yeah, I think freedom is more kind of that intrinsic feeling what you can do. You got the freedom to do certain things, whereas rights, it seems to me that rights are from external sources. So it could be from government, local government, or big government, and about what you can and what you can't do. So yeah, it's interesting. And oh, we've got another one from West that's come in.
now.
Freedom
Yeah,
comes from responsibility of compassion for self and others. Yeah, I like that.
I like that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's truly right. Responsibility, because you got it. Yeah, you got to be responsible. You do got to be responsible, and you got to have compassion for yourself and for others
Mm.
because of that freedom. I love that. Wes, that's well put. Um, so yeah, how you want to end this, Paul? How would you like to like end this today? And like what final words would you like to put on the docket today?
Yeah, I think when we're closing up now, and first of all, thank you to West out there for your input today. It's been really interesting to hear live views from other people when we've been talking, Marcus. But going back to the original question, do you value your freedom? Of course, the answer is yes. It's an easy question, but it does make you want to think more about your freedom, and especially how the world's been the last two and a bit years. It does make you kind of just take a step back and start to think about what freedoms you actually do have. And once we're out of this completely, what you're going to do with your life to exercise the freedom. So yeah, I think I'll leave it on that one. It's a really interesting question when you dive deep a little bit more into it.
Yeah. And again, thank you to Wes out there for contributing, and those who was watching or those who listening, you can leave a comment at any time. Even after this, after hearing this wonderful live stream or the recording, if you're hearing the recording, your comments, your remarks, however you feel about this particular topic, is truly important and is truly valued because yeah, just like you value your freedom. We value your opinion, we value your thoughts. Here at the Transform You Live show, and just the final topic on do you value your freedom and how you should use it. Have a good day to you too, Mr. West, and just how you should use it. Like ultimately, just use your intuition and and whatever you decide to do, do I think Wes said it best. Do it out of compassion,
Hmm.
For yourself and for others. Use some responsibility. Know what and responsibility has to derive out of some established values. I think a real good thing to do at the beginning of every year is start reassessing your values. See where those are coming from. See what they are. See if you need to adjust them a bit or change them a bit. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with believing in one thing for maybe you maybe believed in one thing for decades, and maybe last year you learn something new and say, okay, maybe I need to change what I believe in a little bit. And maybe I have evolved, maybe I have transformed a bit and grew up a bit and matured a bit, and now I value this a little bit more. And so I think that's a good way to move forward in the year and really start making some changes for yourself, and then you really start being successful in things rather than like doing things just because it's the cool thing to do, or because it sounds like the right thing to do, but really that's not who you really are. So that's all I got. That's all me and Paul got. Check us out again next time. Check out some of our past stuff that we have posted. Paul got a lot of cool interviews he's done too. And he got some cool articles too that's gonna be popping out on transformuradio.com. Okay. So until next time, many blessings, peace, and lots of love. Um, I, I can run our final video clip. We're out.
Or listen to the Transform You Live show on any podcast app, on Roku, or on YouTube.